Batman is one of those characters whose impact has far surpassed the boundaries of the comic book world. He's a central figure in pop culture. You'd have to be living in a Batcave to not know who Batman is. But as I mentioned in another video, when there are characters like Batman who are so popular and influential, it's inevitable that other writers would want to copy him, thinking that by doing so, success is guaranteed. Now, all you need to do is to grab your cape and utility belt, because we're about to unveil some of the most intriguing Batman-inspired characters out there. Let's begin. The Confessor. This character belonged to the Astro City comic series, an independent series where each member of the Justice League had their own counterpart. And if you thought DC was dark, you might reconsider after reading Astro City. The Confessor was a priest from the 18th century who was seduced by a vampire and killed by her. Or so it seemed, as he woke up a few days later as a vampire himself. He is much more violent than Batman, but they share a lot of similarities. Both characters wear dark, shadowy costumes designed to instill fear in their enemies. Their outfits are reminiscent of Gothic vigilantes. Like Batman, the Confessor is highly intelligent and possesses strong detective skills. Both characters rely on their sharp minds as much as their physical abilities to solve mysteries and combat crime. Both Batman and the Confessor primarily operate at night, using the cover of darkness to their advantage. This nocturnal activity is a hallmark of their crime-fighting methods and adds to their mysterious and fearsome reputations. The Confessor also has a disciple who bears a striking resemblance to Robin. There's nothing more to say. The images speak for themselves. Night Thrasher. This one is an outright copy of Batman. Marvel has tried several times to create its own version of Batman, but let's just say that almost none have been very successful. This character was created out of desperation, as Marvel was on the brink of bankruptcy, and, in an attempt to save itself, sought inspiration from its biggest rival and one of its most iconic characters. Night Thrasher is a vigilante whose wealthy parents were killed in front of him during his childhood, leading him to become a hero to protect those who couldn't defend themselves. This probably sounds familiar, because it's basically Batman's origin story. You like to see Marvel and DC as rivals, but as we saw in this case, in reality they actually help each other. Daredevil. It's a shame that he is on this list, but the truth is that he shares many similarities with Batman. Marvel has always had one or two copies of The Dark Knight, but they never really took off until Daredevil. Initially, in the comics, he was a character with a good sense of humor and not very serious, but that changed over time, and now he is quite violent and dark, which is probably the version most people are used to seeing. He wears the Daredevil suit to instill fear in those who face him, just like Batman. Both had similar childhoods, losing their parents, an event that made them want to fight for justice. They also have in common the fact that they are the best martial artists in their comic universes, and both lead double lives. They were also both trained by ninjas who turned them into formidable fighters who almost never lose in hand-to-hand combat. However, there is a difference in their fighting style, as Daredevil is blind and possesses super senses. I have to say that it hurts to admit that Daredevil was inspired by Batman, because I really like him and he has made a name for himself, but I can't deny it. But at least he was a successful copycat. Midnighter. He is a character from Wildstorm Comics, which now belongs to DC. When Wildstorm wanted to create its own superhero team and was still independent, they developed their own version of Batman for the Team Stormwatch. He has several origin stories, some more recent than others, but they are all quite good, and I actually recommend them. Just like Batman, Midnighter is a master strategist. Batman is known for his ability to plan several steps ahead, often outsmarting his opponents before a fight even begins. Similarly, Midnighter has a combat computer in his brain, which allows him to predict the outcome of any battle. Both characters operate under a dark, brooding persona. Batman is the Dark Knight, instilling fear in Gotham's criminals with his intimidating presence. Midnighter also embodies a grim and intense personality, often using brutal methods to achieve his goals. Both characters are part of larger superhero teams. Batman is a key member of the Justice League and has led various versions of the Batman family, like the Outsiders, while Midnighter has been a significant member of teams like the Authority and Stormwatch, where he often serves a similar role to Batman in team dynamics. Midnighter is also married to another team member, Apollo, just like Batman has a relationship with Catwoman. Baron Blood. This character is rarely mentioned, and honestly, it's understandable since he's just a secondary villain in the Captain America comics. He's been around for quite a while, and for some time, it seemed like Marvel wanted to erase him, but he reappeared in some recent comics. Although his personality is different from Batman's, and he's an actual vampire, what makes them similar is primarily their costumes, as both are inspired by bats. Although Baron Blood is relatively easy to defeat, especially when facing Captain America, whereas Batman is a formidable force that not everyone can take down, it's clear that the idea for his bat-themed suit was influenced by Batman. Not the most blatant copycat of the list, but he is certainly one. Darkwing. Just like in Invincible, where there's a version of Superman, Omni-Man, they also have their own version of Batman. Just by looking at his suit, you can see the clear inspiration from Batman. The suit is 90% identical to Batman's, with its black cape and mask, and the rest of the suit in gray. Aside from the fact that he doesn't have powers, just like Batman, he has access to very advanced technology. And like any good Batman copy, he has to be intelligent and master martial arts. And our friend Darkwing possesses these attributes. Just as Batman had Robin, Darkwing also had a sidekick. But I don't think it's necessary to explain all this for it to be clear that he was indeed a Batman copycat. His design says it all. Were you surprised by some of the characters on the list? Or were they the ones you were expecting? There are a lot more Batman copycats out there, so I could easily make a second part if you're interested. Just leave a like on the video or comment part 2 to let me know if you'd like to see it. And if you want to keep exploring the world of copycats, I have the perfect video for you right here. I'll see you there.